Genius Kids. Cultivating love for learning.
Lesson 8. Gulliver in the Land of the Giant. Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift is a famous adventure book. Gulliver was a sailor who made many voyages at sea and faced many uncommon situations. Here is the description of one of his voyages narrated in his own words. After staying in England with my wife and family for 2 months, I set out for my next sea voyage that took me to the land of giant, called Brobdingnag. A giant farmer discovered me and took me up on his farm. He was at least 60 feet high and I was just 6. He understood that I was a human being like him, only much smaller in size. He tried to speak to me in his own language. The sound of his voice was like thunder. But I could not understand what he said. I spoke in English in a loud voice. He carried me near his ears. But it was of no use. We could not understand each other's language. He took out his handkerchief, doubled it, and laid it on his palm. Then he gently put me on it and covered with the ends of his handkerchief. I tried to stand up but could not due to the movement of his hand. So I lay at my full length. He began to walk towards an unknown direction. Word meaning: voyage, a journey by sea or in space, discovered, found out, understood, realized, thunder, rumble. After walking a long distance, he reached a village. The houses in the village were extraordinarily big. Reaching home, the farmer called his wife. His wife too was a giant woman like him. She was 60 feet high. He showed me to her. At first she screamed and ran back frightened, as if seeing a spider or lizard. It took the farmer a long time to remove her fear. She watched me carefully and slowly began to touch me and lift me. She behaved very kindly with me. It was lunch time. So, all the people in the family took their seat at the table. They were a small family: the farmer, his wife, 3 children, and an old grandmother. There was only one good dish of delicious food as I could smell. It was brought on a huge plate of about 24 feet in diameter. The farmer put me on the table, which was 30 feet high. I was terribly frightened and kept as far as I could from the edge of the table. The farmer's wife placed some food before me. I bowed low to the farmer and his wife and began to eat. All were delighted to see me eat. Then the mistress sent her maid to fetch a small medicine cup. It held about 3 gallons of drink. With great difficulty I lifted the cup in both hands. Then in a most word meaning, extraordinarily, in a very unusual way, screamed, shouted, delicious, tasty, terribly, awfully, fetch, bring. Respectful manner drank to their health. The drink tasted good. I spoke out words loudly in their praise. It made them all laugh heartily. I almost fainted with the laughing noise. Now the farmer made a sign for me to come to his side. As I walked, tumbled against a crust of bread and fell flat. I got up at once and saw that the good people were all standing around. I took my hat, waved it over my head and bowed low 3 times. They were glad to see that I was not hurt. Just then, the youngest son of the farmer, a boy of them, took me up by the legs and held me in the air. I was shaking all over with fear. But his father snatched me from him and scolded him for his bad manners. When we were halfway through the lunch, their pet cat jumped upon the lap of the mistress. When I heard the purring noise of the cat, I turned head. The animal was 3 times the size of an ox. Its frightening look made me trembling. I could not move out of fear. 3 dogs of the farmer also came into the room for the leftovers. One of them was a mastiff, the size of 4 elephants, and the 2 other greyhounds, somewhat taller than the mastiff but not so big. When the lunch was almost over, a nurse came in with a year-old baby in her arms. The baby stretched his hand towards me. The mistress took me up and gave to him. The baby caught me by the middle and pushed my head in his mouth. I screamed so loudly that he became frightened and let me down. The mistress held out her apron to save me from injury from falling down. After lunch, the farmer went back to his field. From his voice and gesture, I knew that he gave his wife instructions to take good care of me. The mistress had a daughter, about 12 years old. She was about 40 feet tall. She was an expert with her needle and made fine dresses for her doll. She and her mother made a bed for me in the doll's cradle. They put me in the cradle and put the word meaning. Tumbled, fell over, mastiff, dog's breed, greyhounds, dog's breed, stretched, spread, gesture, sign, cradle, caught. Cradle on a hanging shelf for fear of rats. The rats were as large as mastiffs and much more nimble and fierce. Their tails were about 6 feet long. The farmer's daughter was very kind. She made clothes for me, but their clothes were thicker. She also washed my clothes. She taught me their language. When I pointed to something, she would tell me its name in her language. I repeated the sound 2 or 3 times. In a few days, I was able to ask for whatever I wanted. She gave me the name of Little Man. She looked after me with a lot of care. She never left my side as long as I was there. I called her the little nurse. Word meaning: nimble, lively.
Like, share and subscribe.